New videos every day. So you finally scored a date with that absurdly hot girl you have been chasing for weeks, and you really don't want to blow it. Here are 10 dating no-nos. Number 10, don't show up for your date looking like you just rolled out of bed or you just came off of a 10-mile jog. One of the most common complaints that women have is that we're kind of held to this standard of looking pretty and having pretty hair and smelling really nice, and then our date shows up and it looks like he maybe spent 5 minutes, preparing for the date. So a couple of little guidelines here. Pay attention to your nails. If you've got really dirty fingernails, raggedy fingernails, homegirl is not going to be fantasizing about you putting your hands on her. So clean nails. You don't have to go to the beauty parlor, but just put a little bit of time into cleaning your nails, working on your hair, brush your hair. Things like this are really going to improve your chances. Appearance is very important, especially on a first date. Tip number 9 has to do with odor. So you really want to pay attention to the way that you smell when you show up for your date. So this has two sides of this coin. You don't want to drench yourself in cologne. Now, scents can be a real hit or miss. Either your date is going to love that smell, or your date really might not like it, or it's the same scent that her ex-boyfriend wore, or that her professor in college wears, or something like that. So there's a lot of different things that can be associated with a smell. Another thing about colognes is if you wear it every day, you have become kind of desensitized to that smell. So you spray it on, you spray a little bit here, you spray a little bit there. You don't really, you may not realize how much you are reeking of this scent, but it's going to be very obvious to your date. So you don't want to smell like you rolled into the Macy's and went swimming in the cologne department. But you also don't want to have too much body odor. You don't want to show up for your date without having showered. You don't want to show up smelling really bad. But in general, women like the smell of men, and women like your real smell. So you don't have to use too much cologne. You just want to find that happy medium, and that will really work to impress your date. Tip number 8, oral hygiene. So if you show up on your date and you haven't flossed in a week or two, and you've got some weird who knows what lurking around in your mouth, your date is not going to be fantasizing about kissing you. So good oral hygiene is really, really important, not only because of the smell of your breath, but also just the general appearance of your mouth. You want to have clean teeth. You want to have nice breath. You want to remember that the things that you eat also affect your breath. So right before your date, you don't want to have a whole lot of alcohol. You don't want to have a whole lot of garlic or other weird, flavored foods and things like that, because they're going to affect your breath. You don't want to be belching up who knows what while you're on your date. Another thing to consider is smoking. If your date is not a smoker, she is really not going to appreciate you smelling like cigarette smoke or you smoking a cigarette while you're on a date with her. Of course, everyone is different and your date may be a smoker, but that's definitely something to think about and something that can definitely contribute to bad, stinky breath. Tip number 7. Don't act like a big shot, macho, too cool for school guy that, maybe came off of Johnny Bravo or is like straight up the Fonz. Women like confident men. This is true. But we want to see men who are confident in themselves and who they really are. We want to see your passions and your interests. What are you, what drives you? Talking a whole lot about yourself or making chauvinist jokes or sexist jokes is just going to turn your date off. Tip number 6. As much as you possibly can, please avoid belching and flatulence. Now, while a good sense of humor is really important and certainly appreciated by everyone, including myself, a first date is not the time to scope out your date's sense of humor by ripping one at the table. it's possible that your date is going to love that. She's going to be rolling in the floor laughing and really get a big kick out of it. And you've probably found your soulmate. That's awesome. But in general, you probably want to err on the side that your date is a little more conservative. She probably doesn't feel so comfortable with you doing those things at the table, and those would be a big turnoff. So if you can avoid those certain bodily functions just for the duration of your date, or politely excuse yourself into the other room if necessary, your date will certainly appreciate it. Tip number 5, don't talk crap about your ex-girlfriend. The last thing that your current date wants to hear about is what a huge bitch your ex is, and how she did this to you and did that to you and is dating your best friend and killed your dog. If you're trying to play the sympathy card, this may work in some situations, but ultimately, if you're bad-mouthing your ex, that's going to be a huge turnoff for your date. The last thing she wants to do is hear about your ex. The last thing she wants to do is think about how you're going to talk about her if she were to date you. Talk about the now. Talk about the present. Talk about your passions and your interests. If you can't help from talking about your ex, that probably means that you're not over her and you shouldn't be on a date with somebody new. So don't talk crap about your ex. Don't talk at all about your ex if you can help it. And that'll go a long way to ensuring a very pleasant date. Tip number 4, avoid making general statements about what women want. Nothing pisses off women more than hearing men say, oh, women just want this or women just want that. If you knew what women wanted, you'd be married by now. You wouldn't be on a date. So, sometimes this can come up in general conversation. Sometimes you may just be trying to act about, how cool you are and how much you know about women. Whatever it is, this really kind of can, be a pet peeve for lots of women. So if you can avoid making general comments about what women want, that will be exactly what your date wants. Tip number 3, don't talk too much about sex or money. Studies have shown that even women who have had or may be likely to have a one-night stand really don't like hearing you talk a whole lot about sex, and certainly don't want to think that the only thing that you're after is sex. Same thing kind of goes for money. Men who talk too much about money and how much money they make this and money they make that usually kind of sets off a red flag for women that he's talking a whole lot about this, but he probably doesn't have that much of it. And the same thing kind of goes for sex. That's why these are in the same tip. So if you're talking a whole lot about money or a whole lot about sex, this is going to be a huge turnoff for your date. So I would avoid doing that as much as possible. Tip number 2, don't be too negative. Women really hate negativity. And the thing about negativity is that it's kind of contagious. So if you're kind of acting negative and grumpy, then chances are your date is going to suddenly be feeling grouchy and grumpy. So this also goes for self-deprecating comments. So while a woman doesn't want to go on a date with your ego, doesn't want to just be dating, the guy that can't stop talking about how great he is, she also doesn't want to be dating the guy who can't stop being hard on himself and who just keeps, even if they're just really slight little small, derogatory comments about yourself, or that you're not good enough or you're not attractive enough. Your date really doesn't want to hear that. She wants to be knowing that she's going on a date with somebody who's confident in himself, who has some self-esteem, who has some passions and interests in the world. So being too negative, whether it's about yourself or just about your general surroundings or just kind of being a grouch in general, is a really bad idea. So tip number 2 is avoid being negative. Tip number 1, don't be anybody but yourself. Women want to go out with you. They don't want to go out with the guy that you think you should be or the guy that you're really good at acting like you are. Be yourself. And if you're wondering who yourself is or what it means to be yourself, then spend some time with your friends. Spend some time with the people that make you really comfortable. And that person that comes out when you're having fun and feeling really comfortable is you. So you could read this tip as be yourself or have fun or feel comfortable in your own skin. It kind of all goes along the same lines of just being yourself, being true to who you are, And that is going to be the most impressive thing for your date. In a future video, I'm going to tell you 10 really interesting facts about online dating. And in another video, I'll give you 10 things that every man should know about dating before he goes on a date. Thanks for watching. If there's any tips I didn't mention, please leave them below in the comments. Give me a thumbs up if you like my video, and subscribe to our channel so that you can hear all the other wonderful tips that I have coming to you.
If you liked this video, we have hundreds of more alternative videos ranging from sexual health to psychology to mind control. So if you liked it, go ahead and click on me to enter the Psychetruth channel.